Hey, and welcome to the X-Engage Podblast, real talk in bold, bite-sized episodes. I'm Debbie Potgieter, and in each couch-style conversation, we sit down with local thought leaders to unpack the stuff that shapes how we think, lead, and live. No fluff, just relatable insights in under 15 minutes. Because around here, we believe in one thing: we make every interaction count. Welcome back to X-Engage Podblast, where bold, bite-sized conversations bring big behavioral truths to the surface. I'm Debbie Potgieter. If you've ever thought, I'm smarter than that, why did I do that with my money? You're not alone. Today we're talking about those head-scratching moments when bright people make baffling financial decisions. Back with us today is Eugene Drotsky, financial strategist, behavioral thinker, and witness to money mishaps across boardrooms, businesses, and bank accounts. Eugene, welcome back.
Many thanks, Debbie. Nice to be back.
Please note to our followers, the insights shared in this episode are for educational and conversational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Let's start with a very big question. Why do smart people make dumb money mistakes?
Debbie, there are a number of reasons. Let's start with FOMO, the fear of missing out. A scientific genius, Sir Isaac Newton, tried to stay out of the South Sea bubble, a financial crash that happened in the 18th century. But even him, although a genius, could not resist the temptation, eventually losing 80% of the value of his shares and millions of pounds sterling. You can imagine, as ordinary people, who are we to compete with Sir Isaac Newton?
Oh my goodness.
Overconfidence, over-optimism is another reason. Some people are so overconfident they think they can time the market to decide when to buy and sell. What happens then, Debbie? They buy high and sell low and lose money in the process. Smart people are also susceptible to cognitive biases. Let me give you an example. The sunk cost fallacy. They've invested a lot of time, money, and effort in a project, and they simply can't exit it. It's happened to all of us.
Because the project costs so much, we have to continue with it.
Exactly.
And what about diminishing returns?
Exactly, precisely, Debbie. And we all know about people that are specialists in medicine or law, but that does not necessarily translate into financial education or experience. They may be very poor in their financial matters personally. And then there's the recurring matter of social pressure and lifestyle inflation, where people simply want to keep up with their peers. Finally, Debbie, high-achieving people are normally busy. They've got time constraints. Sometimes that leads to a neglect of their personal finances.
True story. And it's not just the average consumer, right? You've worked with C-suite leaders and seasoned professionals. Do you see the same patterns there as well, Eugene?
Absolutely, Debbie. Exactly the same with executives and chief executives. Human nature remains a great equalizer, and the same blind spots are present for executives and chief executives as well. Morgan Housel, in his book Same as Ever, said that we can't predict the markets and the economy and the cycles. However, we can predict one thing over centuries, that human nature stays the same and fear and greed remains pervasive.
Eugene, let's unpack the patterns. What are some common warning signs before a poor financial decision is made?
If we think back about Kahneman's System 1, Debbie, instinctive, rushed decisions under stress is a bad warning sign. Not aligning your decision to a long-term plan is also a recipe for disaster. Not having a structured decision framework with checklists for completeness is also bad. And then people lack patience. They want to get rich quickly. Patience is the key. And finally, you need healthy skepticism. If a scheme is too good to be true, it is indeed too good to be true.
Eugene, what really interested me in your answer is instant gratification. And we are in younger generations where they want immediately to feel and see the money in their account, the interest. They don't want that long-term game of wait for 5 years to see over cycles. And the longer you leave it, the better. We know that. But we have a generation that can't wait. How are we going to deal with that? What a piece of advice would you give the specific generation that just can't wait?
Debbie, the simple answer is that time is the big compounder. And if you start early in investing in your 20s, you will never be surpassed by the person starting in their 30s or 40s. So starting early, investing regularly, and then taking the pleasure to see that money grow and the wealth accumulate to give you that financial independence later is probably the best encouragement I can give for the young folk.
And Eugene, the last point of your answer was the too good to be true. I can tell all of our followers are nodding their heads right now as they're looking to this podcast and saying, yes, I have been at least exposed to some kind of a story or offer where it has been too good to be true. In fact, our fraudsters out there take great advantage of vulnerable folk. What advice would you give on that particular when it looks too good to be true?
Debbie, if our followers are confronted by returns that are double the norm without any risk, you know it's too good to be true. Let me tell you a story about Bernie Madoff. He was a respected New York broker and trader, but he promised super high returns consistently every year for a decade or two. And clearly that could not hold. Today we know that Madoff is an example of the Ponzi schemes that we're all familiar with. It's so sad when people, and especially pensioners, fall prey to these schemes.
Thank you, Eugene. And in your executive and corporate experience, looking back at the real financial failures, what types of errors are most preventable?
Debbie, the one that's most memorable for me, given my corporate experience, is groupthink and a lack of challenge of a charismatic leader that runs away with a company or enterprise. Also, poor governance at board level, not having diverse thinking styles, not challenging enough. Then a lack of role clarity and accountability, obviously. And finally, no clear decision-making framework for high-stakes decision a la Jeff Bezos. When it's an irreversible decision, take great care and make sure you get all the data and facts.
Eugene, and for personal finances?
Debbie, again, not spending enough time reflecting on consequential decisions is a key warning sign. Not evaluating the long-term consequences, 5 to 10 years or even longer. And then my favorite, Debbie, no margin of safety, no room for error. Why is this important? Because the future is inherently unpredictable, and therefore we need to create a buffer of safety for all of us in our decision-making. Then lifestyle inflation, we want to spend more when we earn more. And then finally, I think not having enough humility to acknowledge and learn from our mistakes. That's where a decision log could be very helpful.
Very much so. I have not got a decision log for my finances, and that would certainly be a practical tool for me, because the worst is if you make the same mistake over and over again. I think somebody very important said that maybe insanity.
Exactly.
Okay, someone listening or watching us might be thinking, oops, that's me. Where do they even start?
Debbie, back to Kahneman System 2. They need to engage System 2 and slow down. Never panic. That results in the wrong reaction. Seek expert advice early on. Build a support team with a financial advisor and coach. Objectively review your current situation and where you want to be, and then craft a unique personal financial plan given your unique risk profile. And finally, just focus on what you can control, what's within your control.
Your locus of control.
Exactly.
I love that, Eugene. And for you personally, Eugene, what mindset shift has helped you avoid your own money missteps?
Debbie, it all started for me with financial education. For the last decade or two, I've been reading everything and listening to everything I could put my hands on. Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money is a good example for our followers to start with. It gives great behavioral and financial advice on where to start. I was also lucky, Debbie, in my retirement planning to have an honest and knowledgeable advisor that kept me on the straight and narrow. I took the time and the space to research my options, and I love discussing money matters with my family and friends. I try to learn from my money mistakes by keeping a decision log. And finally, I'm a big believer in that margin of safety, as we spoke, and I try to double up on my emergency fund as often as possible.
Fantastic, Eugene. Thank you for keeping this honest and human and relevant and practical. To our followers, you are not your last money mistake. You are the next smart decision. Eugene, your final thought.
Debbie, for our followers, a few simple principles. Keep it simple. Spend less than you earn. Invest consistently. And remember patience. The power of compounding takes time.
Incredible advice. Thank you so much. And to our followers, here is your Pod Blast Challenge. What one lesson have you learned the hard way? Share it with us, because your hindsight might be someone else's foresight. This is XM Gauge, where experience meets accountability and every interaction counts. See you next time. Thanks for joining us on XM Gauge Pod Blast, where we believe every experience counts and small insights spark big shifts. Follow us for more episodes. Tag us with your takeaways and let us keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, stay human.